Welcome to the Fierce and Fit Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Clarice Yao, a holistic health coach dedicated to helping women over 40 achieve their fittest, fiercest selves. Each week, we'll dive deep into the unique challenges of menopause, including belly fat, weight gain, muscle building, hormonal imbalances, and more. These episodes are recorded live from my free Facebook group, Fierce Women Sculpting Powerful Bodies and Champion Mindsets. Be sure to check the link in the show notes to join our incredible community and access free content, challenges, and resources designed just for you. So this is live 218, and it's the Body Recomp Blueprint, how to get leaner without obsessing over the scale. Before I go into the intro, I want to make sure that I know what your goals are when you are here. And so put below, what is your ultimate goal? Like here, you want to lose fat? Do you want to mainly gain muscle? So welcome to the Fierce Woman community, where we sculpt powerful bodies and champion mindsets. So a couple quick announcements. Like I said, we are excited to serve you here continuously on a Zoom, and eventually these things appear on my podcast. But we are no longer on Facebook. So this is really important that everybody understands this, that you follow me on Instagram. That is going to be our main platform. For now, there is another thing we're going to be building. So you want to stay tuned for that. So make sure you follow on Instagram and stay connected through different sources like TikTok and all the things. And I'm going to put a contact at the end that for all of you guys to stay connected with, okay? In this live, we're going to talk about a number of things. We're going to talk about what is the scale really telling you, and what do you need to look for instead in your body recomposition metrics, like non-scale metrics, okay? So this is really important because, again, people look at the wrong things all the time and then they end up being super discouraged. So this is one of the things I want to talk about first. And then we're going to talk about 8 areas in the body recomposition blueprint. Okay, so you're going to stick with me on this. There's going to be obviously lots of things in here. Let's start with why the scale is lying to you. So I know a lot of you guys know this, but the scale is lying to you because half the time, a lot of my clients tell me, oh, the scale's not moving so much, or, like Joanne, it would move 2 pounds. And, for some people, they might be like, oh, so little, right? Zeta, you once said this to me, it's not really moving. And the truth is, why do I say it's lying to you? Is because muscle is 18% denser than fat. Okay. So it's 18% denser than fat. So you can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time and be exactly the same weight or weigh even more. And this is why it gets people really confused. And people get like, I get messaged by another client that's like, oh, I've been doing this for 2 weeks and now I feel like I haven't shifted my weight. I think that might be Ruby. Ruby, I think, is on here as well. But it's like, I always say, like, okay, you guys have to stop thinking like that, because you're going to self-sabotage your progress because you think that you're not progressing when in reality, you probably built some muscle 18% denser. And so we need to stop looking at the numbers, okay? And another thing is to think about what this means in visual analogy, okay? So the visual analogy is a pound of muscle looks like a dense apple, okay? Like a dense apple. And a pound of fat is like a fluffy grapefruit, or maybe a fluffy, small watermelons, if you've ever seen those small watermelons, right? So like think about the size difference of the apple to the watermelon, right? So it's like it's not about the weight, it's about how you look, right? How you look, you're going to feel different. You should feel smaller. You should start to feel like denser as you build muscle. I don't care what the scale says. I don't care if you're in 3 pounds more. So any of my clients, when they often tell me in their early stages, oh, but like I didn't really lose weight, or I feel like I'm 1 pound more, something is going wrong, and then the sky falls apart for them. And so this is why I said the scale is lying to you. And that's something I want you to be really careful of, so that you don't go into obsessing about weight or weight scale, and that you focus on the right things instead. How many of you have fallen trap to the scale trap. I want you to put scale trap below. If you have fallen victim to the scale trap, put that below. Okay. So what are some non-metric wins that we need to focus on instead? And I want you guys, if you are, whether you're in my program or not, I want you to write this down because this is more important than you think. As a menopausal woman, this is more important. Okay. What I'm about to talk about than the number on the scale. Number one, your energy levels are super important, okay? Your energy level throughout the day, like if you feel better, more energy, not so tired, that's a huge win as a menopausal woman because what that signals is a sign of blood sugar stability and metabolic flexibility. I'm going to talk about metabolic flexibility later in the body recomposition blueprint, okay? So when your energy level starts to improve, you feel better. This is super important. It's like more important than that 1 pound increase on the scale. Okay. So that's a win that you should celebrate. Number two, you should be celebrating strength gains. If you can lift more, if you can lift heavier, like Joanne, of course, broke her plateau, but she is lifting heavier. And I forget who I was talking to the other day, but she also said, now I'm really lifting more weights. And that is a huge gain, right? Like more important than again, 1 to 2 pound increase in your weight scale. Okay. So number two. Number three is better sleep and better going to the bathroom regularity. Okay. So better sleep and going to the bathroom regularly. If you sleep better, again, that says so much about your hormone balance, right? So if you sleep better already, that is a win. If you go more regularly to the bathroom, you have more gut regularity or bowel regularity, huge win. Okay. And you should write this down because even my own clients should write this down because that's going to keep you on track more. You'll stop self-sabotaging. You'll stop saying, oh, I need to see Clarice because she's going to tell me what my metric wins are. Because that's what Clarice does. I meet with my clients and tell them their metric wins. And then they're like, oh, I was kind of upset that maybe I wasn't changing. And I'm like, I know. Okay, let me tell you, every 9 out of 10 of my clients tell me this. So now I'm saying now's the list for you to look at other things, celebrate other wins. Okay. And so I said energy levels, strength gains, better sleep, better regularity. And another one is how well your clothes fit, like the waistband being looser, or with Zeta, I actually wrote your name when I was preparing this, your shoulders and your glutes. When we looked at her first photo to now, her shoulders look so different and she looks so much stronger in her upper body. And it's like a huge win, more than just losing weight. I was like, wow, you look like you have nice shoulders and chest muscles, It really makes a huge difference. And the two areas where you first see like body recomp, and this is for any one of my clients, is usually shoulders and your glute line. So the ones who have worked with me or even in the past, if you guys really carefully observe the changes in your body, a good body recomposition often is reflected in your shoulder line and your glutes. So that's something you can also celebrate, right? And then as well is mood and mental clarity. So if you feel your mood is better or you stop having like brain fog, it's huge wins for you as a menopausal woman. Okay. So let me ask all of you here, and if you're watching the replay, put it below or, write it down on your sheet. What non-metric wins can you celebrate in yourself right now? So I want you to put it in the comments below. What can you celebrate right now that is a non-metric win? So put it below. Is it energy levels? Is it strength gains? Is it better sleep, better regularity going to the bathroom, clothes are fitting better muscular look, mood, mental clarity? I want all of you to put what non-metric wins can you celebrate right now. So put it in the comments. So this is something that I want you to keep in mind, right? This is like the first thing I want to think about. And like Ruby, this is important too for you. You're going through a lot of changes. It's really important you celebrate non-metric wins, okay? Not just like the scale, not just the inches, okay? Otherwise, the menopausal woman mindset is going to self-sabotage and it's going to make your cortisol rise. And that's going to be the worst thing for yourself. Like with Ruby, I told her last week with what her mindset was on, she's making it worse because she's stressed. right? This is the biggest problem with menopausal women is when they cannot regulate their mindset, you just make it worse in your hormone system, right? Okay, so let's dive into the blueprint. More, like I said, we're going to go through 8 blueprint steps. So the first thing is you need to reframe the goal that this is about body recomposition and not weight gain. So the first thing is you have to tell yourself, I'm recompositing my body. It's about losing fat and gaining muscle, not about weight loss. You need to tell yourself first that truth, okay? And you also have to tell yourself the scale may not move much, but my physique, my metabolism, and my hormone health is more important, okay? This is something that's going to like make your brain spin, right? Because you're like, the scale might not move much, but I'm going to be okay with it because as long as my physique improves, my metabolism improves, and my hormone health improves, these are way more important in a menopausal woman. Okay. So we're changing your mindset. This is the first thing is reframe your goal for everyone watching. Okay. Number 2 is you need to understand hormones in relation to macro dialing. Okay. Understand hormones in relation to macro dialing. So this part is a little bit like I'm going to go into a little more detail. And this is not a hormone live, but you know, if you want to watch more hormone lines, you can drop hormones below because it's very complex. And I'm going to frame this section from how do you body recomposite from understanding your hormones and your macros, okay? So the first thing is estrogen. So estrogen, as you know, your body becomes more sensitive to carbs as your estrogen lowers, right? You cannot handle carbs as well and you lose muscle faster. Now, the reality is you're going to not handle carbs as well because of the decline of estrogen. So it in terms of thinking about it, you have to be very careful how you handle carbs in menopause. However, you cannot cut all carbs. If you cut all carbs, you will greatly dysregulate your system. So the key when it comes to relation with estrogen is understanding types of carbs you need to have and how much of those types of carbs you need to have. So there are different classes of carbs, and it's to understand what those different classes of carbs are going to do in your system because you need some of them and in different ratios to control the estrogen drop. Okay. So that's kind of the philosophy I want you to think about. Like I said, I'm not going to go into specifics because Kamiko's need for carbs is going to be so different. We already talked about it, right, Kamiko? She's a dancer. She dances like 5 days a week. She's super lean. I mean, her carb ratio will be really different than Zeta, than Phyllis Adams at 75, you know? So, but that's why I never give you specific numbers. People always ask me, why don't you give me specific numbers on a live? Because it's not fair if I gave you a number. I'm teaching you how to think. So with estrogen control, you need to think, how do I control my carbs and what types of carbs I need? That's how you can control estrogen better. Number 2 is progesterone. Progesterone, as I said last time, is the calming hormone. It helps you sleep better when progesterone is there, and it helps you recover better. So when you have low progesterone, you usually cannot sleep very well. You will wake up at night, you'll have poor recovery. And so for progesterone, it's really crucial that you understand how to calm your system. And this would actually apply to Kamiko because she told me on the call we just had is she has trouble sleeping often at night. And then she found how she ate near the end of the night affected her sleep. So it connects to what I'm saying here is you have to understand how to keep your system calm. And this relates to the right kinds of foods that you're going to eat throughout the day. There is time-based eating, but I don't usually teach time-based eating until later or when somebody like Kamiko is really focused on muscle building. When somebody is in their initial phases of balancing hormones and really regulating their system, I do slightly less time-based eating and more about how the distribution matters. Okay. So that's why I say you have to understand how hormones interact, because time-based eating often relates a little bit more to muscle building, but it also relates to how someone processes it. How, so an example is, I know I keep using Kamiko because we just spoke, so it's the easiest example, but is that Kamiko is a high metabolic burner. She burns like this. High metabolic burners do not allow carbs to sit in their system. So her timing is extremely important. Whereas a lot of other women are not metabolic burners. So their timing may not be as important, but how they combine their food is important. So in general, what I'm saying is with progesterone, you have to understand how to calm your system down with the right foods. Okay, so that's basically the way I want you to think about progesterone. Number three is cortisol. So cortisol is, as you know, it's the stress hormone, and it will break down muscle very fast in your body if you have it in your system. So the most important thing with controlling cortisol is how you eat throughout the day. And I say this a lot in my clients who are learning about macros right now, is like, hey, I need you to eat this certain way, right? Ruby knows that. And I spoke to her just like last week, or we were texting. She needs to combine a certain way. She needs to put her macros a certain way. Why? Because the way those macros come together is controlling her cortisol, right? Is controlling the stress response in her body. And again, I'm using a Kamiko again. So Kamiko gets really strong cravings, partly because she's not quite balanced in her macros right now. So her cortisol spikes, and then she gets up at night in the middle of the night. So this is why the cortisol control is more about how you eat throughout the day. Okay, so you can put that down in cortisol control. And then the next thing is insulin. So insulin, as you know, relates to blood sugar control, right? So how you pair your macros and like when you eat, all control the sugar rise, right? So with insulin control, it's ultimately of understanding like, what slows down your sugar spike the best. It's like understanding, again, so this relates to carbs, but also how you pair with protein. So understanding where you need to pair with protein and the fats and things like that, the macro balance I always talk about, how you control the speed of sugar entry, and also how you train. So your training protocols are going to greatly affect your insulin sensitivity. So when you understand, okay, this hormone relates to this thing I do, this hormone relates to this thing I do, this is kind of the way I want you to understand. Once you understand more detail of this, then that's why you adjust accordingly. So that's why, like, every person's body is different. And I have a term for this that eventually I'm going to be developing, maybe a program or something from it, but it's called hormone adjusted macros. Okay. Hormone adjusted macros means that you adjust your macros based on your hormone profiling, which I've always done, but just now I'm giving it more words to it. Okay, is that based on where your hormones levels are, we need to adjust the macros. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you feel like you need to understand better hormones, hormone adjusted macros, I want you to put hormone adjusted macros in the comments, because, or you message us, because obviously once the Zoom call ends, we won't be able to see more comments. So you put it down on your paper and message us, because if you feel like your hormones are really off and you need help with that, this is where that specificity is really important. And I always say this, like, that's why you cannot just say the app gave me this macros. You know, eh, how does your app understand your cortisol and your estrogen? A formula, all it's going to take into account is your age, your weight, your height, and the activity level you have. That's about it. It's so limiting. That's why I always say, no, you need to have a menopausal perspective. Okay, so if this is making sense to you, put hormone adjusted macros. Okay, so that's number two. So first is adjust your goals, reframe the goal. Number two is understand hormones relating to body recomposition. Number three is eating to recomposite, not to diet. So number three, this point, I'm going to dive into macronutrients specifically. Okay, so your whole concept is to not to diet, but to recomposite. Okay, so what does that mean? It means you need to understand each macro: protein, carbs, and fat. Okay, protein, carbs, and fat. So we're going to dive into why each of these is super important to body recomposition. Okay, so for everybody listening, the way I want you to think about macros, especially when it comes to recomposition, is macros are not rigid rules. Okay, they're tools that kind of you help you understand, like, what range do you need to be in to be at your optimal. And that's why it isn't so much sometimes like, okay, tell me exactly how much protein to eat or how much carbs to eat, but it's almost the best way to help you understand is to understand the ratio differences between protein, carbs, and fat for your body. Where does the ratios of protein, carbs, and fat have to sit in relation to each other? Like, the best way maybe to help you understand is like, I don't know if you've heard me say, the reason why you have belly fat, most women have belly fat, is because estrogen drops and the testosterone in comparison rises, and testosterone pushes weight into your midsection. But does that mean that you have super high testosterone? No, it doesn't mean you have super high testosterone. It just means the ratio comparison of testosterone to estrogen change. And that higher ratio of testosterone to estrogen now is causing a different signal to your body. So when you think about the ratios of protein, carbs, and fat, it isn't necessarily, I need this much protein and I need this much carbs. Those have connection and relation, but actually it's the ratio. It's the same as your body. I could be, who was I talking to? With you, Kamiko. I'm much smaller than Oshone. I'm shorter. I'm 5'2". She's 5'7". She's so much taller. Her bone structure is twice as big as mine. But when we compete or we stand on stage, the ratio we're still evaluate on our ratio is the ratio of our shoulders to our waistline to our glutes is the ratio. Okay, so this is what I'm saying is that what's more important is the ratio of protein to carbs to fat for your specific body type slash hormone profiling. And that is what I look at when I am taking somebody in under my wing and coaching them. Like when I gave the ratios to Zeta, or as we're developing the ones for Cynthia or Phyllis. Phyllis was more in FFF with Oshone, but when you have your macros, actually that's what I'm looking at, is where does the ratio sit in relation to each other. For example, Zeta, she has insulin resistant. I already knew that when she came into my program. So, and she struggles with cortisol because she had a lot of mindset things with her mind. So there was a specific kind of process. I would know that her carbs are kind of going to be not where it would be maybe for a regular person. Like I already am thinking about those ratios just so you start to understand. So that's what I mean by macro awareness. So let's start with protein. So first of all, protein is like the queen macro for body recomposition. So what do I mean by that? Is that you need protein, in order to have muscle protein synthesis, right? So this is absolutely necessary. We know that. And most 40-year-old women massively under 40 and above, massively undereat protein. Okay. And remember this thing I said is that you could think you're eating a lot of protein, but if you don't absorb the protein, good luck, right? So it's not just about amount of protein, but amount of protein absorption. Put that down. It's not just about protein, but about protein absorption. So you have to have higher levels of protein than you think. Also, protein is highly thermogenic, meaning it burns more calories and it takes more time for your body to digest. More protein also relates to more regulated ghrelin and leptin. When you watch my hormone lines, you'll know I talk about ghrelin and leptin a lot, the hormone signals. When you have more protein, you regulate those hunger signals better.
Okay. So you have to think, okay, I need a lot of protein in my body. That is for sure something you want to keep relatively higher, but just ensuring that your quality of your protein is there, because if it's not quality protein, then you will spike cortisol and inflammation in your body. Okay. So make sure it's quality protein that you're having. Number two is carbs are not the enemy, they're your hormone lever. Okay. So we're going to talk about carbs. Carbs are super important for menopausal women, even though I feel like, most menopausal women really struggle with understanding carbs and how to work with it. Okay. Carbs are part of your training intensity. So without them, you will underperform and under recover. Without them, you will underperform and under recover. Okay. They will blunt your cortisol, meaning they will dysregulate your regular cortisol wave patterns. And I spoke about with two people on you will have either a reverse cortisol cycle or a blunted cortisol system. This is why a lot of menopausal women struggle with sleep. Okay. It connects a lot with carbs. Okay. As well, good types of carbs improves thyroid conversion and sleep quality, which I spoke about, but specifically, it's really important for you to understand that thyroid conversion, which I spoke about last time, T4 to T3, is extremely important for metabolic efficiency. So if you don't eat carbs, good luck with having a good metabolism. If you do not eat carbs, you will affect your thyroid conversion and you will affect not the sleep quality because of the lack of serotonin and melatonin production. You need carbs for serotonin and melatonin production. Okay, so this is super important. Perimenopause and menopause often swing between low carb burnout or carb binges, meaning they either eat way too little or they suddenly want to eat a lot of carbs, like the bag of chips or a whole bunch of cookies or whatever it may be. Okay. So a lot of women kind of swing, and this creates massive hormonal imbalances. So it's really important that it's not about low carbs and it's not about high carbs. It's about smart carbs. Okay. I want you to put that down. If anybody listening right now wants to learn more about smart carbs, I want you to put that as the help that you want, because smart carbs means you understand the impact of those carbs in your system and what types of carbs and the ratios of those carbs. So, I mean, what types of ratio with the starch carbs, what type of ratios with the vegetable fibrous carbs, what type of ratios with the simple sugars. There's different types of carbs, and within those classes of carbs, there's better ones and less good ones, right? So, smart carbs meaning understanding how we work with these different levels of carbs and how much of them you need. Okay, so I'll say it again, it's not about high carb or low carb, it's about smart carbs. Okay, so that's number two for the carbs. And then number three, let's talk about fat. So fat is your hormone building block. I always say fats are steroids, and hormones, your hormones in your body is made from the fat molecules, right? So in order to have proper estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, you need good fats. You can't go too low in your fats. If you're too low in your fats, you'll have poor cycle regulation. Like, if you still have your menstrual cycle, you'll have more anxiety, you'll have drier skin, brittle nails, inflammation of your body. Okay. So you need more fats in your body to control inflammation. So, but obviously, one of the tough things about fats is it's super high in density, right? It will push your calories up really fast. So, how do you get a lot of fat but still not go over in your caloric count, right? So this comes back to what I said earlier. It's understanding the ratio, not how much, but the ratio between protein, carbs, and fat. For some people, if I said like, it's kind of funny in my head, I have a visual, you know how like the seamstress will measure your shoulders and then your waist and then your hips, like three measurements. My mind is like, okay, protein, carbs, and fat. Those measurements, they all will change accordingly for different people, right? So You absolutely need fat macros, okay? So does anybody are is anybody I know lots of people are usually carb phobic, but is anybody kind of fat phobic here? If you are, maybe identify yourself. I know that a long time ago I was, as a dancer for sure. I tried to in my 20s, I tried to buy everything that said fat free. You know, we all fall for that. Like I've taught you guys for so long, like, oh, fat free, fat free, fat free, until like you learn, oh my gosh, the fat free stuff has crappy stuff in it. It's horrible for your body, you know? And so, and really when I think back to long time ago, obviously when you're younger, you don't realize these things, but yes, you know, I struggled with like kind of like this anxious and like high stress in my body, and I couldn't understand why. And it's probably because I was trying to cut all fat out, thinking that will help me drop fat. And that's a common problem with women, when in reality, you really do need fat, okay? And good types of fat with proper macro ratios, okay? And so, and then another thing that I want to talk about is that macros ultimately need to match your goals and your metabolic phase, okay? So, a lot of women after 40, and I talked to so many who said, "Oh, I bought this, you know, on this app or this app or whatever." Once you are past 40, you really cannot just grab a macro plan from just an app, because if your sleep, like if your stress is high, your sleep is off, your cycle is irregular, you have maybe recent surgery, you start taking hormone replacement therapy, you have injury in your knee or your joints, like all of this stuff, your cookie cutter macro adjustments is not going to do it. Again, this comes back to what I said earlier. You need hormone adjusted or hormone adjusted macros. Okay. So that's what I want you to understand is recomposition is really understanding you need macros to match your goals and to match your metabolic phase. Okay. So, and on this live, I mean, I'm not going to talk about metabolic phase, but there's different kinds of metabolic phase, and that's why again you need to recognize or at least understand your hormones. That's kind of like the base, is if you understand your hormones, you understand more where your metabolic phase is. For example, are you really a metabolic burner? You know, are you a metabolic flexible, you're metabolic flexible, you know, are you metabolically storing? And there's other types too, but like you have to understand your metabolic profiling. It's one of the reasons why I observe a while for the clients in my app. I observe what you're logging, I observe what you do, because trying to understand how does your metabolism work. And the better I understand it, the better I can give you your ratios. Okay. Yes. So that number four, right? Number five is macros. Macros need to teach you to build, and it's not about shrinking. So I want you to think like the way to look at macros is how does it help you build the bricks of your body? Okay. Not how do I shrink my body? Okay. So macros are like the bricks that will help you have a better body recomposition. And it requires you to track. Okay. So this is another thing. The ones who work with me, and if you're not working with me, the tracking is really crucial, because the only way you can actually body recomposite is if you track and dial. Kind of sounds like track and field, but it's not track and field, but it's track and dial. That's what I want you to write down, track and dial. Okay. The track and dial is super important because it's, like I said, it's a fluid process. And in order to be able to dial your macros clearer and clearer and more on point, you need to track. And I know it's hard sometimes. I know it takes time, even for my own clients. I understand it takes time, but for a season, you need to track if you really want to have the best body composition. The only reason you know, I got to where I am, my national competitions in Oshone had her competitions. Why? We tracked and we dialed. And because not only did I train myself to competition with my coach, but I trained Oshone 5 shows and multiple competitors in the past, the adjustment of your macros is the secret sauce. People don't realize this. The secret sauce is not your initial macros. The secret sauce is the constant redialing of macros. Okay. And then most people don't stick long enough to truly understand that. There's two scenarios that I see. Either they do it so they do it too short term. Let's just say they do it 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and they think that they've got their macros and that's the magic. And then they forgot to look at, no, it needs to be dialed as I continue to change and my body changes, right? And this is one of the reason that, for example, like Zeta, you're in Muscle Accelerator, or Kimiko is really working on muscles in the program as we move into it, because it needs to be dialed as your body starts to change. You know, Zeta, your body is actually different now than when it first started with me, right? So there's that one, there needs to be more time. The second scenario is inconsistency. Now, there's a few of my long-term clients on here where they struggle to track consistently for me, and not just long-term, some of my newer ones too. You don't track regularly for me. So if you don't track regularly for me, it makes it very difficult for me as a coach. I'm like seeing 2 days of data, then nothing. Then I see 3 days of data, then nothing. Then I see 1 week no data, and then 1 week data. So, you know, and this is why I want you to understand it's not that, again, I always call people out with love, right? It's always with love, but I want to bring it to your attention is it, whether you're in my program or not, or you're with another coach, if you are inconsistent, it means your coach can only will give you your dialing way slower. They give you your macros and calories way slower, or they give you inaccurate and they just estimate because now they're just like, I don't know, like 1 week she logs 2 meals for me, then the next week she logs 3 meals for me. I have no idea where she is. And so I'm gonna guess, right? So this applies to everyone. Is if you truly want the secret, there's the secret to like the physiques you see on bodybuilding stages, how I can get shredded in my photos and every muscle pops. Secret is all in the macros, is in the dialing. Okay. So, and if you've been in a program and you're still doing the old macros, ask yourself, well, maybe I need to adjust my macros now. Maybe I need to get some help in understanding what my hormone profile now is and how I need to adjust those macros. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I need to adjust my macros, I want you to put the word adjust there. If you're new, like you're just starting, don't worry. Like Ruby, you don't need to put that. I am watching right now. You know, Zeta, I'm watching. You know, this is why we're meeting tomorrow. I'm watching what's happening, the ones who are with me. But if you are the person who is inconsistent, I'm going to ask you, please be consistent. I can't dial you. You're giving me a half broken record. I can't dial your macros. The only thing I can do is guesstimate your macros for you. And you're putting your coach in a really tough position to help you. Okay, so just remember that. So put adjust below if you like, I really need to adjust. Now, that was step number 3 because I said we're going to go through 8 points. The next point on body composition is you need to lift heavy enough and progressively enough. Okay, heavy enough and progressively enough. Okay, now this one I did a live, like I think last week or 2 weeks ago on muscle building. This one was really good because I had talked about the row technique and most people didn't get it right. Now the chest press technique one, if you haven't seen those one on Instagram, by the way, put row technique or chest press technique because they're very important. I would encourage all my clients to go look at them because right now I'm coaching a number of you on technical lifting. You should be able to look at those frames and figure out maybe which one is the best technical technique, right? And the one with the row is interesting because there was the one that activates your muscle the most and the one that has the best sculpting technique. And I just gave feedback to, who did I just give feedback to? I can't remember now, but I told her to look at a specific frame in my Instagram post for the row technique because I said that is the one that sculpts the best. So these are the things that you want to start to understand is like what sculpts the best, which one creates the greatest muscle activation and growth. So coming to lift, in order to body recompensate, you need to lift heavy enough, you need to progressively overload enough, okay? So in this topic, I want you to know that building muscle is a non-negotiable once you're after 40. Okay, everyone listening, if you are not lifting weights, you're not training your body, it is a non-negotiable. You need to lift weights. And the best way I want you to understand is lifting weights and building muscle is equal to hormone therapy. Okay, I want that to sink in. Lifting weights, building muscle is equivalent to taking hormone therapy. So you don't necessarily have to go take hormone therapy. You can control it through actual lifestyle changes. Okay. So, but you have to know what you're doing. That's what I'm saying. Is if you don't know what you're doing, you're half lifting, half wrong techniques, raising your cortisol as you lift, that's not doing you any favor. So let's talk about that. So progressive overload, first of all. Progressive overload is not just about increasing weights and reps even though so many people think that's the way it should be. Last time, 2 weeks ago, when I did that live, so many people were like, oh, you increase weights and you increase reps. And it's not just increase weights and reps, it's about better lifting technique and more effective use of that muscle, right? Maybe better ROM, which is better range of motion. Those of you who work with me know I talk about squat depth a lot. Better lifting technique, better ROM. It could be better speed activation. And that was something I talked about in the row technique one on my Instagram, right? So it's like, it's not just about weights and reps, okay? So if you're listening to this and you're like, I need to understand better progressive overload, then put progressive overload in the comment section. Okay. Another thing in this lift heavier category is your strength training. So your strength training volume typically needs to be about 3 to 5 times per week. Okay. If you're doing anything less, it's okay, but try to increase it. So for a couple of my clients who are starting, I had mentioned to them, hey, if you can even get one workout in a week, I'm happy. If you get 1 to 2 workout in a week, I'm happy. But it's a starting point. It's a springboard. It's not where I want you to stay, right? The realistic thing is that you do need more strength training in volume. Okay, so that's another thing to think about. And you still need cardio, okay, but just not too much cardio. And you still need a little bit of HIIT training, which I've talked about before. So there needs to be a whole bunch of like variety of training. The way you train needs to vary. And this is what MTP protocol means. MTP, I always say, is menopausal training protocol. Okay, MTP. MTP, I say it like the same thing I talked about macros. If you told me, Clarice, I heard that protein is super important, so all I'm gonna do is just eat protein, which I guess that's the carnivore diet. But if you told me I'm just gonna eat protein, Clarice, do you think that's healthy? No, right? So, or keto, I'm just gonna eat fats, right? Like it's not healthy to just do one kind of thing. So I want you to think of lifting the same way or exercising the same way. You can't just go, well, I hear that lifting weights is super important, so I'm just gonna lift weights. That's all I'm gonna do. No, there needs to be different things involved with your lifting program. That's what MTP is saying. What I'm saying in MTP protocol is you have to vary different types of training in order to create the maximum hormonal balance in your body so that you can build muscle, right? So if you are wanting to learn more, either put muscle sculpting masterclass or MTP protocol, okay? So put that below. Now, why is this super important, to have MTP or to build muscle is that you want to increase lean muscle mass, you want to improve bone density, but building muscle has two other things that's super important, okay? I want you to remember this. It enhances your glucose uptake. So this means it really controls your insulin. Do you remember I said one of the two hormones that really gets menopausal women is cortisol and insulin? By lifting weights and building more muscle, you allow yourself to have better glucose uptake. This is why it's super important. And it triggers myokines, okay? And myokines are muscle release anti-inflammatory molecules, okay? Cytokines are opposite. Cytokines are released from your belly fat and is highly inflammatory. And it's what they test for, and they could find a lot of cytokines in cancerous cells. And so we don't want cytokines, but you want myokines. And myokines are triggered when you build muscle. They are anti-inflammatory molecules excreted from your muscles. So the better you understand how to build muscle, okay, the the better you are controlling inflammation, right? So this is why it's super important. But again, I'm going to kind of go back to like MTP or hormone balance way of building. If you don't know how to lift weights or program it, your risk of spiking cortisol in your lifting is very high. And so you need to get help on how to train properly in order to have the right cortisol control and also myokine control of like how much myokines are being produced to control the inflammation. Okay. So remember, if you're writing notes, arrow down for cytokines, arrow up for myokines, right? We want more myokines, we want less cytokines. Okay. So that is number 4. So that's the lift heavy and progressively for yourself to create better body recomposition. Okay. Now, number 5 is you need to prioritize sleep and recovery like it's your job. Okay. Sleep and recovery is super, super important. You need to get 7 to 9 hours of high quality sleep typically. Okay. And if you do not get quality sleep, you are going to greatly affect like your ghrelin, your leptin, and you're going to have a lot more like cravings. Okay. So you want to make sure that you get 7 to 9 hours sleep, and you want to get really good REM sleep. Okay. The better and more cycles of REM sleep you can get, the better your hormone profile will be. Your REM sleep is your deep sleep, right? And your deep sleep is where your growth hormone is released at its highest rate. Your growth hormone, I think it was up to 70% of your growth hormone is released in the REM sleep, okay? So this is super important because sometimes it doesn't matter how long you sleep. If you don't reach your REM sleep, good luck. Okay, so it's about the quality of the sleep. So I'm going to talk a little bit why it's super important to eat proper. So if you don't eat proper, you ain't getting down into your REM sleep. Okay, so in terms of protein, you need a right amount of protein in your body because you need a specific amino acid called tryptophan. And tryptophan is the compound that makes serotonin. Serotonin then converts to melatonin. Okay, so people who undereat protein often have trouble sleeping because they're missing tryptophan. Also, if you're vegan or vegetarian and you're not good with your formulas and your macros, you're very likely to potentially be deficient in tryptophan, and that will affect your sleep quality. Okay. Is there any vegans or vegetarians here? Because that is one of the common things I find is they often are shortchanging their tryptophan. Um, do some need more sleep? Yes, Kimberly, it's a very good question. Is yes, everyone's different. Like typically I'm a person who seems pretty well rested at six hours, 7 hours. Some people are like, no, I need 9. So it does depend on sometimes your genetics and your hormonal profile. Also, probably I have a good hormone flexibility. Like my metabolic is very flexible. Like whereas somebody who has high hormonal imbalance, they probably need more sleep, that type of thing. So yes, it does vary. That's why I say it's like a range. It's a range of it. If you feel good, honestly, like Sherry Elgersma used to tell me, she's like, honestly, Clarice, I feel so good after 6 hours. I don't feel like I need 9 hours. Then it's good. If you feel like you're good on 6 hours, like, and it's also dependent on results. Sherry Elgersma did my transformation program twice, and she dropped 30 pounds the first time and dropped 25 pounds on the second round. So her body was functioning. It was working. So it's okay. But if she was telling me, oh, like I'm only sleeping 6 hours and she's stuck and her belly fat's not going, then I'm going to start to ask her where her, like how's her REM sleep, and all of that, right? So in terms of the fats now, and I mentioned this already, but carbs, so just make sure you're not cutting carbs too much, like I said earlier, because then it will affect your sleep, okay? And then fats. So fats are needed for hormone synthesis, like I said, melatonin, progesterone, estrogen. So in terms of your sleep, why fat is so important is not only for the hormones, but also for blood sugar stability. Okay. The more stable your sugar is, like I think of like a stable lullaby, like a baby sleeping, that's how well you'll sleep like a baby. If you have good blood sugar stability, you'll sleep like a baby. If you don't sleep like a baby right now, it's very indicative that you may have not enough good fats in your body. Okay. So there's that one. And yes, so we talked about carbs, protein, carbs, and fat, right? So those three. So when your macros are too low or imbalanced, your body is going to send you a lot of stress signals. Okay. So, and so this will cause your cortisol to rise. That's kind of why I say, like, for most of my clients or people who come to me, they often tell me I eat healthy, but yet uh, they have weight on their body, they have belly fat on their body. And sometimes it's not about you eating healthy, it's about, are you creating the right balance in your body? Hormone balance, macro balance. I mean, these are all really important. Hormone balance, macro balance, MTP protocol balance. It's about the balance, right? That's what's really important. Yeah, so with that being said, with your macros, if you feel like your macros are not balanced and you need, if you've already put adjust below, but like if you feel like the balance of your macros is affecting your sleep, I want you to put sleep macros, because it is about adjustment, but it's about specifically what is causing you not to sleep well. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Awesome. So it's been addressed. That's awesome. Just as long as I know. So the sleep macros, if you're like, I need to have better sleep macros, put that below. Okay. That will help you with your, and remember, it's not just about better sleep, it's about better REM sleep. Okay. You need to get deeper into your sleep so you have the proper hormone balance. Okay. So perfect. So the next step is, so step 6 is support stress and nervous system health. So this one is about your lifestyle. Okay. Chronic stress is a recomposition killer. Okay. So you need to find ways in your daily life to lower that stress. Okay. So, like the walks, like I talk about daily walks, I talk about breath work, I talk about meditation. And if you haven't seen the post I did on cortisol control for that stretching one, that's again on Instagram. So you could put cortisol stretch or below if you want to see that specific post, cortisol stretch, because that one specifically is a really good one to like regulate your parasympathetic nervous system. And as you know, menopausal women need a lot of this. I recommend you do that more often. Go to my Instagram. And please, if you go to my Instagram, I'm going to ask, okay, this is just something I really honestly think it's like courtesy on social media. If you like the post, and please comment. It really helps our posts. It's kind of like, somebody that when I go watch a podcast or something, like it's like you can watch it and leave no comments, but it's better and it's more courteous if you actually watch it and leave a review or leave a comment. It's really important. We create content, we try to help you, and we hope that you will also reciprocate and put a like button on it or put a comment on there. And that's the only way that we know that you like the content. And then that also we create more of the similar content that you like, right? So like the comment on the post, on the Instagram post. It really helps us give you better content, but also helps us grow better, right? So, but it's like for us, like as the content creator, if we don't know what you like, we can't create more of it. If you like, say, I like the stretch one you did, or I like that you did the test of this, whatever, of the road test, like then we know more about it, right? It's also about that. And it's about communication and reciprocity, right? The more that you give back to us, the more that we can give back to you. So on this call, that's why I appreciate if people are messaging or commenting in the comment, like Zeta, like Phyllis, like Kimberly, like it helps us know it's actually doing something. It's helping you, right? So keep the comments coming in, keep the energy there. So yes. And then Other ways of supporting sleep is like the different adaptogens you can take and supplements you can take. Recently, I've been telling a few of my clients about certain supplements I want them to take in regards to the sleep and about lowering stress. And so again, that's something I'm going to save for like conversation with my clients. So if you are really like wanting to learn more about the sleep and better sleep like supplements and adaptogens, you can put sleep below. Okay, so there's ways to support better sleep and all of that. So there's number 6. Number 7 is you need to track the right metrics. Okay, the right metrics is, again, you need to look more than weight, like I said at the beginning. So these are the things that you need to keep track of to maintain better mindset and better actual view of what's happening with your progress. Okay, so you should be tracking progress photos. You should be tracking circumferences. You should be like metrics. You should be tracking your strength. You should be tracking your energy, your sleep, your digestion, your mood, how your clothes fit, your cravings, and your cycles. So your cycle symptoms. So there's a lot of non-metric things that you need to track, okay? And this is going to help you have better recomposition because you look at all the other things, okay? So if, like I said, the tracking systems are super important, okay? If you don't have a good tracking system in just alone, like the app that my clients are in is super good because you're tracking everything in and then it's charted out over on the app. And then we additionally have a chart additionally that we track on that lets us see like patterns and systems is super important, right? But if you're just like randomly like, oh, I track sometimes and sometimes I don't track, this is kind of why you won't progress very well. If you want actual results, my mentor always says winners are trackers. And I know Shona hears this a lot. Winners are trackers, okay? So if you want to win in your physique, you want to win in life, you want to win in your finances, you want to win in anything in your life, you need to track. You cannot just fly by the seat of pants and be like, oh, I hope it happens. I hope I look like that physique competitor one day. No, it was no accident. Trust me. That I became a physique competitor. My back didn't just grow naturally like that. And Oshone did not just okay, I have to admit that Oshone naturally had very nice shoulders. She's always had very nice shoulders. But she didn't naturally, her legs were always a really hard one for her. She didn't naturally have really nice muscular legs. So it was not by accident. We tracked, we kept everything like to a T. And Oshone, do you remember when you were getting ready for competition, your notebook we had, and then how I was dialing your calories and do you remember that? I was like, okay, plus this, minus this, do this. Like, you remember that? We would dial everything in. So everything was like to the T of it. And that's what I mean is like, if you're listening and you've always kind of done something general, that's my message to you. You want a really good physique. You need to be super specific and you need to track. And if you don't have good tracking systems, I would suggest you put tracking system below because maybe we can help you with that. Like we have tracking systems in BioRevive. We have tracking system obviously in the with the transformation and the FFF, like we have tracking systems to help you. Okay, so put tracking system below. Okay, yeah, before apps, okay, when I worked with Oshone, it was all paper notebook that we did her tracking. And every time she would bring her food log on piece of paper, and I would go, okay, this plus this minus this, do this, all of this is. I wonder, do you still have those notebooks, Oshone? And I had the old school way too with my coach. I had everything minus plus this, all of that. So that's why I said macro dialing was really a concept we did as bodybuilders for a competition, right? So yes, if you want better tracking system, put tracking system below. All right, so number 8 step is you ultimately have to choose your body recomposition focus. You have to choose, do you want fat loss first? Do you want muscle building? Or you want hormone healing? Okay, or maintenance. I mean, that one could be also, but it's not really body recomposition if you choose maintenance. Really, there, if you want body recomposition, there's 3 things that you choose. You either choose fat loss first, muscle building, or hormone healing. And all of them have a different, slightly different approach to how you will approach it. So this is why people usually talk with me on a consult to figure out what is their approach. Kimiko's going to be muscle building without a doubt. You know, Phyllis, when she first came to me, was actually hormone healing. Hers wasn't even fat loss. When Phyllis first started FFF, the focus was hormone healing. And so everybody has a different focus for themselves. And that's what you have to decide. If your body is still not where you want right now, you need to decide what phase you are in. Do I need fat loss first? Do I need muscle building? Do I need hormone healing? And I want you to put it below in the comments. Put it below what you feel like you need. Fat loss, muscle building, or hormone healing. Okay, so put it below. Just because you put fat loss first doesn't mean that you are not going to body recomposite and build muscle, because ultimately you still need to build muscle and lose fat. But what I mean is that where your focus goes first will dictate how we do certain protocols, how we how we do a reset phase, for example, will require me to make certain recommendations in your program that will be different from somebody who is in a fat loss phase. And somebody in a muscle building phase, I'm going to give them slightly different recommendations, not just in macros, but what I want them to do on a daily basis in their lifestyle. So it will change what you do in your lifestyle depending on which phase you want. And actually, I have one more phase in here, which isn't really a body recomposition goal, but some of you will identify right away when I say this and might even smile. Maybe you're not the fat loss first, it's not the muscle building first, and it's not even the hormone balance first. It's the recomposition mindset phase. So it's the mindset recomposition you need. It's the one on the mindset that you need. And I am going to say a lot of my clients need that. Before I could even help them move into the phase, their self-sabotaging thoughts have already disconnected them before I can get them to do something in their program. So this could be you. I know there's a few of you in here that really need to work on the mindset. And I know it's not like officially a recomposition goal, but it is. Do you know what I mean? It's really connected. So make sure you identify for yourself what's the first phase you need, okay? And that's really important, okay? So those are the 8 things that is the blueprint to body recomposition. And so the final things I'm going to leave you with is body recomposition is a long game. Okay. It is not a short-term thing. This is why a lot of my clients go into muscle accelerator. They first do transformation and then they do muscle accelerator because they recognize that in order to fully change the composition of their body, they need to keep going. They need to keep lifting, get more progressive overload, form check feedbacks like Zeta will and is and Kamiko will. They need to keep dialing those macros as their body changes. So your mind has to think of long term, okay? Long term. And then some of the things to kind of keep your mind really in tune. This is just like cool little facts or little things for you to think about to wrap up. I mentioned this, but lifting weights is so important because it really impacts your relationship with estrogen. Estrogen drops, and now you have like no protection, your muscle drops, and then your glucose goes all over the place. When you lift weights, it is your hormone therapy. I said this earlier, so I really want you to keep this in mind. This is your hormone therapy. Next thing is recomposition is super important based on the amount of protein you have. So you need to really get good or get help from someone who understands how much protein you need, because you need to trigger the right muscle protein synthesis in your body. Again, it's not that I want you just to eat protein, but your understanding of protein is one of the most important parts of body recomposition for you in protein. Okay. Next thing to think about is your fat loss for your body will ultimately come down to metabolic flexibility, which I mentioned really at the beginning. And metabolic flexibility is how fast your body can switch between fat burning and carb burning. The faster it can switch between fat and carb burning, the more metabolically flexible you are. And so the goal for a lot of my clients, as you heal, as we learn to heal your body, hormone balance your body, is to better your metabolic flexibility. That's where a lot of my base principles of what I teach, like for example, I know Ruby is really going through a phase of trying to learn her macro combos. And I know it's been a little bit tough because she's really like, I need to get this right. But I always tell, I tell her like if she can start to learn and get used to this macro combos, she's going to help her metabolic flexibility. She's going to help heal the hormone imbalance in her body. So the better you adhere to certain principles that I teach, the more metabolically flexible you are. You want metabolic flexibility, okay? And then another thing is, okay, I'll put this kind of simply, but it's kind of a little bit like there's more to it, but you lose weight in the kitchen with nutrition, but you change your body in the gym from lifting, and you build muscle and balance your hormones in your sleep. Okay, so kind of think about that. So you lose weight in the kitchen, meaning you cannot lose fat unless your nutrition is on par. But you build your body in the gym, meaning you create the trigger in the gym. But the true muscle build and hormone balance comes within your sleep. So that statement is super crucial if you understand the complexity behind that. And if you can have a coach who understands how to help you work with this kind of combination, then you've got gold, because all three combined together is the formula. Okay. So yeah. And then last thing to leave you with for this part is that, cardio is needed, but cardio raises your cortisol. So be very careful of like how much cardio and types of cardio you do. Okay. So be careful about that. So the last thing here is I want you, as you kind of get off this call, is to reflect on, like one, what is my main goal? Like I said, you have to tell yourself, okay, what's my main goal here? Is it really my mindset that's stopping me? Is it I need to balance my hormone better first? Do I need to lose fat first? Like first identify your goal. Next, I want you to think about what changes you have experienced over the last 4 weeks in regards to your non-metric wins. Okay. So I want you to identify that because it will give you a really good base of where you are. Are you on the right track? It will help you identify, are you going in the right direction? Because if you're spinning your wheels and you're not really going anywhere, that's when you have to go, I think like over the past 4 weeks, I'm just spinning in a circle. I need to get some help, right? So reflect what has changed over the past 4 weeks in terms of non-metric wins. You need to then look at your workouts and to look at, do I do an MTP protocol and do I work out enough? Okay, do I do MTP protocol and do I work out enough? Right? And next is, do I actually eat regular meals with macro balance in it? And another thing you have to think about is, do I actually sleep enough between the 6 to 9 hour kind of mark, right? So these are things I want you to think about for steps for yourself coming out of today's call is choose your goal, reflect on the last 4 weeks and what non-metric wins you have. Look at your workouts. Do you actually train at least 3 to 5 times with MTP protocol? Number 4, do you eat regular meals with the right macro balances that I talked about? And do you actually get enough sleep? Okay, those are the things I need you to think about, evaluate, and get help if you don't have those things in place for body recomposition. Okay, and the last thing I'll say is that the hormone metabolism audit quiz, like I said, is being sent out to all the bikini challenge people. But if you want, I might be willing to send it to you too. The metabolism hormone audit doesn't give you the answer. It gives you the you need to fill out the audit form so I can see potentially where your hormone levels are based on the audit form. Okay. So if you do want that audit form, then put it below and then I might send it to you. And then for the audit, so this is because this is kind of in addition to what I usually do. All of the bikini people, as well as the ones who are filled this one out, I am only going to give the audit, the free audit within the next week I think I give a date range, like within the next week or two, and then I'm not going to give the audit after that. So there's only a specific time range I'll give this for. So if you really want it and you want to fill this out, you need to message us hormone metabolism audit, and then we can send you the form to get that done. And of course, if this is a replay, somebody's watching it, then make sure you message us on Instagram or on SMS so that we can send you the hormone and metabolism audit form. Okay. And then that way I can audit through what your hormone levels potentially are, what's the reading and all of that. Okay. And the last thing is for the bikini challenge people, make sure Friday you post your final wins and your comparison photos for your bikini photos, because we are going to select the final winners, and we're excited to see who are going to be the ones who win a supplement pack, who's going to win the muscle sculpting masterclass for free, and somebody else will win a discount to one of my programs. So good luck to all the winners that are on that challenge. And like I said, if you are wanting help with body recomposition, and throughout the call you've just been listening and haven't indicated it, put body recomposition below. And I'm going to put, and I did this last time because a lot of people still don't know. I talked to like different clients like, oh, I didn't know you're on Instagram. I'm like, oh my gosh, we've been announcing this for like the last week, but I'm still announcing it, so I'm no longer on Facebook. So you need to follow me on Instagram. Make sure you follow so you don't miss my posts. And then the other kinds of details, like you could text us on our business text or email there, and some of the other things. If you want, you can copy that from the comment section so that you have a way to stay connected to us and that you won't think that Clarice disappeared. Because right now the people who are on Facebook who don't know, they're like, where did Clarice go? She just disappeared. And it's not because I want to. I got locked out and Oshone got locked out. We just cannot access the platform at all. So we still want to serve all of you. We still want to add value to all of you. So keep following us on Instagram. And if you found this was helpful, please write a comment below. Tell me what you loved about this live and tell others about it. Tell them to follow me on Instagram, because then we can send them this replay on this. Okay, so yeah, sending you all lots of hearts. My hearts come out, and let's do some balloons here for you as well. Confetti. There you go. Confetti as well. Okay, and hopefully this added lots of value for you, and I will see you on Instagram. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fierce and Fit Mentor podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, or wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If something in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review or share it with a friend who'd love it too. Your support means the world and helps us reach more amazing women like you. Until next time, stay fierce, stay fit, and let's keep building your most powerful self.